trying a thing, okay? Just don't yell at me for the lights. Don't yell at me for the sound. Don't yell at me because I'm sitting on my floor stretching at home and I have no clue what I'm doing, okay? That's what this podcast is about. That's the whole deal. That is the whole thing that I'm trying to do right now. Hello, and welcome to the Power of Imperfect... I can't even say it. Oh my God. Hello, welcome to the Power of Imperfect Action podcast. I'm Michelle. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but we're going to give it a go anyway. This is a podcast that I just recently started. It's been something I've been thinking about for a long time, but sort of got paralyzed in all the things I needed to do in order to start the podcast. So I decided that, F all that. I'm just going to start, and it's going to be messy, and it's not going to be perfect. And then I'm going to call it the Power of Imperfect Action because that's what I'm doing. I'm taking messy, imperfect action. And hopefully, one day, it all works out. Who knows? Who knows? So this is the first official episode, even though I did a intro episode last week. I just opened my computer and picked up the mic and just started talking. So this week, what's different is I have the video going because I'm going to put it up on YouTube. Still haven't decided. There goes George. Still haven't decided if I'm going to make a whole separate YouTube channel or just keep it on my already existing YouTube channel. We'll get there one step at a time, one messy step at a time. And then I'm also made myself some notes. I never use notes. I never lesson plan when I'm teaching, and very, very, very I don't often script my content. I have sometimes, but then I find that it comes out a little bit like I'm reading a teleprompter because I am. So I'm going to see if I can just wing it after just sitting on the beach and making some notes. But this could be a total mess, okay? I'm sitting on my floor right now because I wanted a way to connect with whomever might be listening, all three people, and in an environment that you might find me. I'm a bit of a floor sitter. I like stretching. I find that it is one of those tools that I have that gets me into my body and out of my head because I think way too much, and I'm probably not the only person. So please, come along, stretch with me. You don't have to stretch with me if you don't want to. Obviously, you do you. But if you want to, come on. And I do have my cats here. They may start fighting, and we're just gonna deal with it. Okay, so Power of Imperfect Action. What is imperfect action? Imperfect action is taking steps before you feel like you have taking steps before you have all the steps. This is what imperfect action is right here. It's having a goal or a dream or just something you're working towards, but taking action towards it, regardless if you feel ready or if you have the perfect circumstances set up for you. So I want to start pivoting and talking more and sharing my story. And I was sort of stuck in that space of I don't know how to do that. I don't even know how to start. I was literally frozen in that for months, possibly years. And I was talking with some people and talking about I'm a good talker. I like talking. I don't like making small talk with people, but I enjoy deep conversations. I find those very stimulating. And don't worry, there will be guests, probably the next episode. But I was trying to find ways where I could share more of my story because there's some wild shit that a lot of people don't know about, and people have been following me for years. And then also something that sort of plays into what I want to talk about today. I'm really ready to shift and evolve and transform in my physical career. So maybe you know me from putting up lightsaber and staff spinning videos on the internet. I started doing that on YouTube. That's how this whole thing started. And I also work in film doing stunts. I've done circus. I've done dance. I used to be a world champion baton twirler. I've had a whole life. And I haven't found the right way to express and to share it. And partially that's because I've been healing my own trauma and working on my shadow. But now I feel like I'm in a space where I can speak to it. The last couple years were rough, as they were for many people. But now I feel like I'm in a much better place to speak to at least some things. There's still the other things that I'm working through. And one of those things that I want to talk about that plays into this whole idea of like messy action is that I've been feeling like the persona that I have put out into the world is not authentic to who I am and how I live in real life. And not to say that I have been lying. It's not that at all. It's more just, this is going to go into my analogy that I want to share, and I think that I'm a genius for it. It's that I was just wearing a costume, and wearing a costume or armor or a mask, something that a lot of people my age are talking about right now, especially women, is wearing all these masks in order to fit in and survive in the society that has been built around us. And that's what I feel like I have been doing in my social media, but not just in my social media. It's my whole entire life. I have been wearing this armor as a way to protect myself, this armor being all these different costumes and personas that I've put on in order to fit in or find success or just, like I said before, survive. And I know I'm not the only one. And I've been watching a lot of videos. I've been watching a lot of videos for the last few years, specifically about high masking autism and neurodivergence, a lot of ADHD content. But the thing I really resonate with is that high masking autism, where just from the very get-go, you learned that the world is just not set up for the way that you think and the way that you operate. So then you have to start building all these defense mechanisms in order just to get through the day. And the more that I've been sitting back and being like, I'm just really not showing up as myself, I'm just going to start doing that. The more I do that, the more I realize that it goes so much deeper than just what I've been showing on social media. It like involves my entire life. So like, I don't even know where to start. Let's start at the beginning. This is why I did notes, but now it just looks like a bunch of shit. Okay. So I had the realization that I wasn't showing up authentically, and that essentially I was just a big ass people pleaser. And as someone that's sort of felt outside of people and like I don't really belong, like I've often like been like, what planet am I from? Like I don't understand humans. I used to think of myself almost like Spock when I was a kid, because I was just like, I just don't get it. Like I don't understand. I'm finding my way, but things don't make sense to me. So what do I equate that to is I have been a performer my entire life, literally since I was 5 years old. So I was a baton twirler growing up. I started competing at a national level by the time I was 9. By the time I was 11, I was going to the world championships, and I was the best in my country and one of the best in the world for my entire competitive career. I won medals at worlds. I won international competitions. Like I did the thing. Okay. Part of that baton training, where you go out into the middle of a floor, it was like a basketball court, and you do your routine and you perform for them. You wear a costume, and every year we had about 12 different baton routines. And part of our baton training that was really intense, like we were training for the Olympics, even though it's not in the Olympics, we were also dancing full-time at a dance studio, because in order to succeed in baton, you have to be good at the blending of baton and body. So you have to be able to do the tricks, but you also have to be able to move and use the baton while you're dancing. And that's quite difficult because you're doing two different things. And on top of that, we also had to do gymnastics. Then when I was done my competitive career, I moved straight into professional performing. So I became a professional dancer. That's why I moved to Vancouver. I swear I was going to dance for the Backstreet Boys. And then from dance, I moved into circus arts. So I performed with a professional circus company. And then from circus is how I got into stunts and acting, working in film. And then eventually social media happened. So in all stages in my life, I have been on stage and I have been performing, okay? And in all of those stages of my life, there have always been costumes involved. So when I was a kid, they were like sparkly and like little bodysuits and like cute little things like that. One of these days I'll show you. And dance was about the same thing. You wear like bodysuits and skirts and hats and like you put on stage makeup and you do your routine. And then when I got into professional dancing, the costumes changed. They became a little bit more mature, a little bit sexier, but still it's a costume. And then circus is where like things really started getting weird. Like full head to toe, unitard, sparkly, wearing wigs and eyelashes and playing characters in these like circus shows that we were doing and the animation that we had to do. I learned a lot about how I can perform with playfulness in that time. Just a side note, I'll go into it one of these days. And then film, I was a stunt performer. And so again, everything's a costume and you're also wearing the costume of somebody else. So it's not even me wearing the costume. I'm wearing a costume to look like another human that actually exists. And then I'm going to do my best to emulate and match their movement. And then social media is its own, like I have my go-to like Matrix jacket and I have that purple top and I wear the black one with the high turtleneck. Like I have a costume or a persona for that. Now, what I didn't realize in all of this performing and all of this costume wearing was how heavy the costumes were getting. And that because I had been wearing these costumes for so long, it almost became that I didn't know how to take them off and just be Michelle, just be me. Because so much of my life, I was so consumed with the skill. And again, when I moved into my career, like focusing on like, how do I build a career out of this? And it became my entire focus. And because my training was so intense when I was a kid, I never really got that time to like hang out with myself and know what lights me up, what doesn't. And then maybe that's something I should have figured out when I was an adult, but I just kept going. Because what I learned in that space was if I can be good at these skills and be good at performing and win medals and go on stage and make people go, wow, people love me. And they clap for me and they validate me. However, what it felt like to me and what I was experiencing and observing is as soon as I would put that away and become a shell, then I would be like ignored or ostracized or yelled at or told that I'm bad or like all of these things that you hear when you're a kid. So very, very early on, from a very young age, I learned that if I can put on a version of myself and make people clap for me and validate me, that makes me feel worthy of love. And because my training was so intense when I was a kid, it was like the only thing I thought about, the only thing I did. Like I did not have friends outside of baton and dance. I did not participate in anything extracurricular other than baton and dance. School was just unnecessary evil. And high school felt like prison, really. Like I was ready to move out and do my own thing, but I had to like graduate. But I didn't even go to my own grad. I went to a baton competition instead. Like I had no interest in anything outside of baton. That was my whole life. That was my whole identity. And then I kept that identity and moved into a professional performing career and moved into that context and never allowed myself and never gave myself the space to be anything other than that, because that was the only thing I knew that made people like me. And so now, let me change positions here. I just did a track class this morning, and then I lost my light. Got to move forward. Now, 20 years into my professional career, I'm realizing, after having burnt out and gone through a hell of a like dark, depressive, scary, dark period of my life the last couple years, because I was so tired of being myself. But then what I was realizing was I was not actually being myself. I was just wearing the costume of what I thought Michelle should be. So I can go to work, I can put on my wig and my makeup and my like weird zombie costume and go kick ass on a film set. Yeah, I can do that. But then when I come home, like, I don't show anybody who I actually am. And it just really started to feel like these costumes that I have been wearing my entire life have become my armor. And that's the only version of myself that I will allow people to see, especially online, especially on my social media. And now what I'm realizing when I take a step back, and I had all this space during the pandemic, as a lot of people did, I think. I'm sure that that space that the pandemic gave us was the first time a lot of us, especially people my age who are like millennials and older, like it was the first time we really sat back and had space to be like, wait, this isn't working for me, but I'm so tied in to society and all these expectations of me and who I'm just expected to show up as every day. That's not who I am, but I've already established myself as this. It's like an actor being typecast in a movie. Like, it's really hard for them to shift into something new because there's only one way that people see this person. I think Matthew McConaughey talks about that in his book, where he was the romantic comedy guy, and then he was like, I want to do something dark and dramatic, and it took him years to shift and to find something new and to create the space for him and establish himself as a dramatic actor. He did it, so I know it's possible. But that's a little bit where I'm at right now, where, okay, I've been wearing all these masks. I've been wearing the costume of being this crazy lightsaber staff person on the internet. I've been wearing the costume of being a stunt performer, a costume of being an actor, a costume of being a teacher. That is cat hair. That's real nice. Welcome to my house of cats. And the list goes on and on. Like, there's always just a version of myself. There's a version of me wearing a costume of being a really hard worker and showing up to work, being ready to work and on time and like, let's go, and being a team player and being delightful, even though inside I feel like trash. Even though inside I'm fighting my anxiety so that people don't see that I'm actually really not okay. And again, these costumes, when I really step back and look at them, they're old and they're smelly and they're starting to fray. The sequins are falling off. They're no longer as bright and shiny as they used to be. They're just musty. And what they feel like is really, really heavy and scratchy. And as someone that has a lot of like physical touch, sensory things, I just think about that and my skin crawls. And what I really need to do in my life right now is find the courage to stand in my own power, my own magic, and take the costumes off. Take off the armor that I have been wearing so that I can really feed and thrive in who I am and feed my soul and maybe include some new things into my life that aren't just a reamalgamation of the same thing that I've always been doing. I'm a person of action. I have a lot of physical energy, and so as a person that hasn't felt like I've fit in, I've always had to make my own way and make my own steps because there's been nobody just telling me what to do or handing me like things. Like some people do get that. A lot of us don't. And I'm one of those people that things have not come easy for. I have had to work for every little bit of success that I've ever had, especially my film career. And I still get overlooked to this day. People don't believe that I have what it takes to work in the film industry. There's a fire in me. But that, for me, has always been the fuel for my fire to take these action steps and just keep moving forward. And a lot of it isn't coming from a space of passion or enlightenment or like inspiration or love. It's coming from a place of like, well, if you don't see me, I'm going to make you see me. I'm going to make it so you can't ignore me. I think there's a Steve Martin quote out there. Oh, pop. Where he says, be so good that people can't ignore you. And I really took that on because the one thing that I have is this armor of my skill and my talent. And you cannot deny that I am skilled and talented because I have worked for decades for that shit. But now, as I advance in age, my body doesn't feel the same way that it used to. My body isn't the same that it used to be, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly not 15 or 20 years ago. And there's this part of me that's mourning that I'm eventually going to have to let it go. And like, yeah, I'm going to keep some skills in my back pocket that I can just whip out anytime. But there's a lot of it, and a lot of it is it's the hustle to get the work. All these little things that I'll talk about it one day when I talk to some of my stunt friends, is like, there's a lot of like work that goes above and beyond training for skills to get into stunts and like acting. There's a lot of networking and connections that you have to make and just showing up at the right time and showing up to people's classes and putting the work in. There's a lot of that stuff when I really take a step back and be like, okay, I'm going to take off these costumes and discover who I am underneath. A lot of that stuff in my drive and interest to participate has dissipated completely. And that's how I know that I haven't been acting and taking action from a space of like alignment. It's been me trying to be the thing that people want to see from me. So if I can show up and be delightful on set, I talked about that in a video on my Instagram and my TikTok about how I used to be told that I had a bad attitude when I was a kid, and what I heard was I'm bad. And so I fought my entire career, my competitive career and my professional career, especially my professional career. Like one of the things that I set out when I first became professional, I just started working professionally. Again, just taking action. Nobody told me how to do it. I didn't know one person when I moved to Vancouver. Not one. And there was no, it was like So You Think You Can Dance. Like there was no like professional resources for somebody that wanted to work in the entertainment industry like there is now. So I had to figure it out completely on my own. And I'm very happy that I did. I did something. But I totally lost my train of thought. This is why I have notes, and then it's already gone. Anyway, I've had to work really hard for everything that I've gotten, and it still feels like okay, I know what it is. I was saying that, especially when I started my professional career, I made a deal with myself that nobody was going to tell me that I had a bad attitude ever again. So I'm like, I am going to be delightful to work with. Nobody's going to say, she's got such a bad attitude, like I used to hear when I was a kid. And so again, here's a costume that I put on, not being myself, even though there's days that I show up and feel awful. I'm not allowing myself to show up as I am. And like, there are some like moments where you have to suck it up and like move through it. But it's the idea that I have to put something on. And that's what we know is people pleasing. And those of us that are discovering like being high masking of all these different neurotypes types of just not being what's considered normal, but like what is normal anyway, is we put on all these shows. And so for me, I feel like I'm always just putting on a show because that's what I've learned how to do. I've literally learned how to perform. And I was not a good performer when I was a kid. I used to get in trouble because I refused to smile, because we had to practice when we were like practicing our dances or our baton routines, like we had to practice the performance part, and I would do it with my body, but it wouldn't reach my face. And this is where this like high masking autism comes in. I didn't understand that what we were doing was trying to like tell a story and portray emotions through our body, and then that brings it up to the face. That did not make sense to me. I didn't understand why I was being told to just smile as hard as I can and do my whole jazz number and like keep my face like this the whole time. Like I was older when I figured out, I'm like, oh, I can just generate emotions in my body and then just let myself express that through my face. That's what you've been asking me to do the whole time? Why didn't anybody fucking tell me? Like, did not understand. But what I mean to say by that is that I had to learn how to perform. So even now, like when I've worked with therapists and I've inquired about, I think I'm autistic, they're like, no, but you make eye contact. Because I have learned how to put on the costume of a regular human being that can be spunky and spontaneous in the world. That is a persona of Michelle. I'm not saying that it's all these costumes that I've worn aren't authentic in some capacity. They're all little bits and pieces of me. But if I never allow myself to take them off and allow them to breathe and air out and like take off that heavy armor that's defensive, I'm never going to allow myself to breathe and receive as myself. And like a thing about me that maybe you know or don't know already is I have terrible work-life balance. I only work. I have a small group of friends. I have the capacity for like 3 to 5 friends at one time, and that's pretty much it. But I don't have like a personal life outside of my work. And I have no embarrassment saying that because it's just like a part of who I am is I'm a very, very solitary person. And what I would like to do moving forward is to really, truly create some balance in my life where my whole day, 24 hours of a day, is not me just like trying to think of things for work to do, because that's where I've run out of steam. That's where I've run out of energy. That's where the costumes and the armor that those costumes represent have gotten too heavy. And I'm not saying, I said this in the last episode, I'm not saying that I want to take them off forever. What I am saying is I need to find a way to slowly but surely take off the pieces of the costumes, hang them up really nicely, and like wash them off and shine them and display them for people to admire, while I get to sit back and be proud of what I've done. And maybe one day, yeah, I'm going to put that one costume back on, or I'm going to put a piece of that costume back on, because all of it is a part of me. But they're not the only parts of me. What I want to get to in my life is the essence of me, so that I can finally feel fulfilled and satisfied with what I'm doing. Maybe be happy for once in my life. Like, I've had moments of happiness, but there's never been a time in my life where I've been truly peaceful and content and happy. And I would really love to know what that's like. I would really love to know what not having my entire identity wrapped up in the thing that I do really well. I would like to know what it's like to not be so attached to that. Yes, it's a part of me, but it's not the only part of me. And I'm finally in a space where I get that and I understand. And, you know, like a big part of it comes from like me not liking me. So then I hide in these costumes because that's where people like me. But really what it comes down to is is I have to learn how to love and appreciate myself exactly as I am, as messy as I am, as like scatterbrained and like all over the place as I am, because I definitely wear a costume of somebody that it's got their shit together, and that could not be farther from the truth. Like my internal experience is very vivid, and some days I'm off dissociating in the corner. And I did that a lot when I was a kid, and thank goodness for baton as an emotional stimming tool for me, because I don't know if there's any other circumstances. Like maybe I would have always been an athlete. If I hadn't gone into baton, I would have been a figure skater for real. But baton allowed me this space where I had something in my hands and I could be doing something with my hands a lot, that allowed me to process a lot of the like just like deep discomfort that I was feeling just being in the world. And I think that's partly why I've stuck with it and made it a career, is because it's the only thing I know, or the only thing that I thought I had in terms of tools that allowed me to just like regulate myself in some capacity. But now I'm actually realizing that movement and exercise and training has been that for me. But when it's coming from a space of, I need to be better, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, which is what it has been my whole life. And I'm going to go train at this class, and I'm going to show up at that workshop and then this seminar because these people are going to see me and then they're going to want to work with me because I'm so good. That's the stuff that I have to drop. But the actual like movement and the enjoyment of moving and playing is something that is very regulating for me. And so I've had to switch up my whole entire life. Seriously. Not so much practicing martial arts anymore, but I am taking a track class, like learning how to sprint. And I'm not the best in the class, and I love it. And I go to the gym because I love working out and things like that. But doing it from a space of enjoyment and not because I have to do these things because I need to feel validated by the people around me. The only person that's going to be able to validate me is myself. And the only way I'm going to be able to validate myself and really feel true compassion and empathy and love for myself is to take off the costumes and just allow myself to be exactly as I am. Even if there's moments where I don't like it, because there's no escaping this. This is it. This is what I got in this current reality that we seem to find ourselves in. And it's challenging. And maybe you've been there before. Maybe you're also in a space where you're realizing that the way you've shown up in life and shown up in the world is not an accurate representation of who you are anymore. And there probably have been moments where it has been accurate, as it has been for me. But now this is the time, especially as we're moving through these strange, uncertain times, where I think it's even more important to truly embody your power and yourself, because that's all we can do. Like, the best thing you can do for this world is to change your bubble and make your own personal space the best it possibly can be, whatever that means for you. And we're all just doing our best out there. But it's really easy to see now who's running from their problems and projecting themselves onto other people. And I notice when I do it myself, I'm certainly guilty of it. But I know in those moments that those are the times that I'm most running away from myself, when I'm projecting onto other people. It's me being like, oh, I don't like what's going on with myself, so I'm going to project onto you. And I see it a lot in my comments, and maybe we'll do like fun comment readings on this silly little thing. I don't know if anybody's going to watch this. Like, I really don't actually care. I was feeling pretty nervous about talking and sitting down and talking today, because I was sitting at the beach earlier and was like writing in my little book and being like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I know what I'm going to talk about, but then the idea of sharing it vulnerably was like, I don't want to do it. I was like nauseous. And so I took a shower. I got home, I took a shower, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to start talking. And if it turns out that I'm going to do this episode again, I'll do it again. It's fine. Whatever. I think this taking off the costumes analogy is going to be something that I talk about for a long, long time. So get ready for it. But anyway, that's what I have to say about taking off the armor to become more of what we've always been. And I want to know, like, if you sat through all 30 something minutes of me talking and sort of half stretching, I just don't know if I can like stretch and still maintain my voice while doing this. That's one of the things I'm personally working on right now is my voice. I don't know if you've noticed when I do videos where I'm like spinning a stick and talking, I tend to yell at the camera. And I think it's because there's a certain amount of tension and energy when I'm using the sticks that it comes out in my voice of just like, I'm projecting and I'm performing to the camera, but I have a mic and I don't know if I've overstimulated the mic. I don't even know how I want to finish this thing. It takes courage. It takes an immense amount of courage to disregard all of the distractions that take us away from ourselves and all of the mirrors that are up around us that tell us that we don't look the right way. We're not the right kind of person. We're not this. We're not that. We're not blah, 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 blah. All of that is just smoke and mirrors. And it takes a lot of courage to take those mirrors and flip them back on yourself and truly, truly like take off the masks, take off the costumes, take off the armor, and just be with yourself exactly as you are and take responsibility for your shit. Take your responsibility for how you've shown up in the world. Sometimes circumstances are out of your control. We know that, but taking responsibility for how you are showing up is the only thing that we have control over, really. And I think that's why it takes so much courage, and I think that's why we're constantly being distracted from that, because that's an incredibly powerful space. Like, if you know yourself and you are fully in your power and have your like fire lit, you are unstoppable. And it's something that has to be maintained. Like, you have to stoke the fire. But I think that is a worthy thing to work towards, because in that space, everything is better. Even if shitty things happen to you, you have so much more capacity to handle those things with grace and with courage and with presence. And I think the word is presence, like being fully present with yourself and not making excuses for yourself and not victim blaming yourself or not being a victim of the world. Again, circumstances out of our control. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the things that we can directly control in our lives, like being in traffic and getting all road ragey. Like, that's a you problem, not the driver problem. Yes, other drivers are going through their own shit, but there's something about turning that mirror back on yourself that is so deeply terrifying, which is why I think people don't do it. And I want to be one of those people that does. And I want to inspire other people to do the same, purely by living by example, because that's all I can do is to share that journey with people and to have the courage to face myself and stand in my power as an example and as a light for other people so that they have the courage to stand in their power and light their fire. Like that to me feels fulfilling. And if I can find more ways to do that are inspiring and motivational and not problematic and just a way that people are really going to resonate with. Resonate? I said resignate. Resonate with. That is a satisfying path for me. And this podcast is going to be part of that. So I hope you enjoyed listening to my story. I don't know if it's a mess. Who knows? I'm just trying something out there. If it's not perfect, whatevs. We'll figure it out. Oh my God, I haven't done the splits in like months. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope that you come back. Please leave me any feedback in the comments. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments. I would love to read some comments while I'm here since I'm just sitting around doing nothing. Do you like it when I stretch? Or would you rather me sit in a chair? And if there's anything you want to hear me talk about with other guests, I want to talk to all the cool people that are willing to talk to me. And we'll just go from there. I really, really believe that there's power in just taking an action. It doesn't have to be anything big. Like, you don't have to just start a podcast. You could literally write down a list of ideas or whatever your big, hairy, audacious goal is. Just moving the ball forward a millimeter or two every day, every other day, once a week is actually more movement than you actually think it is. So even if it's a small goal, even if you're worried, even if you want to work in your health, a small goal can be I'm just going to drink 1 extra glass of water a day. Just one. Just we all need to drink more water. Period. But little actions, even if they're messy and imperfect, lead to big results. And those little messy, imperfect actions are certainly better than doing nothing at all. And I know that we get paralyzed in the idea that we have to have all the cards laid out and they all have to be perfectly arranged and we have to find all the ways before we start to move. And if this podcast tells you anything, is that that's not true. You can be a hot mess and still show up, and maybe at least 3 people will watch, at least. So just try something this week that inspires you or maybe scares you a little bit, and you have done something wonderful for yourself. All right? All right. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe on the channels. Leave me a 5-star review because this was a hot mess. But leave me comments. Do all the things that make all of these videos and podcasts successful. You know what they are. And I will see you again next time.